The night on Outpost 17 was quiet. Too quiet for a place at the edge of known space. Most nights, Ethan Cole could hear the mining machines humming in the distance, the low winds crawling across the empty plains, and the old generator behind his cabin rattling like it was trying to stay alive. But tonight the wind had stopped. The machines were silent. Even the sky felt strange, like it was holding its breath. Ethan stepped outside with a mug of recycled coffee, rubbing his tired eyes. He worked long shifts repairing broken equipment, and the only thing he wanted now was sleep. But something above him felt wrong. The stars flickered. One star flickered twice. Then it moved. Ethan frowned. Stars didn't move. Not like that. He squinted and saw a tiny red dot racing across the night sky. It was glowing brighter by the second, leaving a burning trail behind it. A ship. A ship that was falling. At first, Ethan thought it was just another small cargo ship failing its landing. That happened often on this forgotten mining world. But then he noticed something that made his chest tighten. The ship wasn't falling straight. It was changing direction, jerking left and right as if someone inside was fighting to keep it stable. "Someone's alive in there," Ethan whispered. Suddenly, the ship exploded in a burst of blue sparks. Half the burning hull tore off and spiraled toward the mountains. But the main body kept coming, faster, louder, brighter. Ethan dropped his mug and ran. The crash shook the entire outpost. Dust lifted from the ground like a wave. Lights flickered across the buildings. Ethan didn't stop running until he reached the fence. Beyond it lay the thick forest and the rocky path leading to the crash site. He should call security. He should wait for backup. He should stay away from a burning alien ship in the middle of the night. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man who could stay away when someone needed help. He jumped the fence and sprinted into the forest. Smoke hit him first, sharp, metallic, burning his lungs. Branches cracked under his boots as he pushed forward, following the bright blue glow between the trees. The air grew hotter. Flames lit the leaves with ghostly light. When he reached the crash, he froze. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Long, silver, almost smooth like flowing metal, now torn open and burning. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface, fading and brightening like a heartbeat. Ethan moved closer. Something inside the wreckage shifted. A sound, soft, weak, almost like a cry. "Hello?" Ethan called carefully. "Is anyone alive in there?" No answer. He stepped into the broken doorway, pushing aside a sparking wire. The interior of the ship was dark, filled with smoke and shattered panels. But then in the corner he saw movement. A small shape curled behind a metal crate. A child. An alien child. Its skin was a soft blue, with faint glowing lines running down its arms. Its large eyes stared at Ethan with fear and confusion. "Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The child didn't respond. It just clung to something, or someone, behind it. Ethan moved his flashlight to look. His heart dropped. There was an alien woman lying beside the child. She looked similar, same glowing markings, same blue skin, but she was badly injured. She lifted her head weakly when she heard Ethan. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Help, my son." Ethan knelt beside her. "Okay, I'll help both of you. We need to get out before—" A deep mechanical sound echoed outside the wreckage. Ethan froze. Not engines, not rescue. A ship landing. He looked out the broken doorway and saw dark shapes between the trees. 3 tall armored figures wearing black masks and carrying energy rifles. Their armor had the symbol of something Ethan recognized from warnings. The Varkon Empire. Brutal, ruthless, conquering. These were not rescuers. These were hunters. The alien mother grabbed Ethan's sleeve with shaking fingers. Her eyes were full of fear. "They want the child," she whispered. "Please, and protect him." Ethan felt the hair on his neck rise. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a mechanic living on a forgotten world. But the child was staring at him. Small, frightened, shaking, and the hunters were getting closer. Ethan took a breath. "I'll get you out." He scooped the child into his arms. The mother tried to stand but collapsed. Ethan caught her and dragged both of them toward the back of the ship. Outside, the hunters scanned the wreckage with red lights. One of them spoke in a metallic voice. "The targets survived. Find them." Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. He pushed through a broken panel, helping the mother crawl out. They slid down the wreckage and hid behind a fallen tree just as the hunters entered the ship. The mother gripped Ethan's hand, her voice trembling. "You must run." Ethan nodded, lifted the child tightly and helped the mother up. Then they ran into the forest, into the darkness, right as the hunters opened fire and the ship exploded behind them in a massive blue flash. The night sky lit up, and Ethan knew. His simple life was over. Everything had changed. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. The forest was a maze of shadows, but the true darkness was the one hunting us from behind. My lungs burned, my heart hammered against my ribs, but I just kept running, clutching the alien child tight against my chest. He was so small, trembling with every snap of a twig, every distant terrifying hum of alien weapons combing the night. Behind me, his mother, Lyora, stumbled. She was injured, weak, but her will was pure iron. She refused to slow down, refused to be the reason we were caught. The hunters were close. I could hear their slow, heavy steps, the sickening crunch of metal boots on dry leaves. Their voices a deep, twisted language that sent shivers down my spine. The Varkon Empire had a reputation across the galaxy. Once they marked you, they never, ever stopped. I ducked behind a massive boulder, pulling Lyora down with me. She needed to breathe. Her skin, which normally glowed with a soft blue light, was dimming, flickering like a dying ember. She was close to collapsing. "Can you keep going?" I whispered, my own breath ragged. She gave a weak nod, but her eyes screamed the truth. A loud, mechanical click echoed through the trees. A scanner. They were close. I crouched lower, pulling the child, Kale, deeper into the shadows. "If they catch us, we're all dead," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Tell me, why are they so desperate to get your child?" Lyora pressed a hand to her wound, her breathing shallow and painful. "My son, he is important." "Important how?" She looked at Kale, a heartbreaking mix of love and sheer terror in her eyes. "He carries something they want, something they will kill entire planets to control." Before I could even process that, a brilliant blue beam sliced through the darkness, sweeping across the forest floor. It was one of the hunters' scanners. It passed just a few feet from our hiding spot. Lyora gasped, a jolt of pain seizing her. The scanner stopped. My heart felt like it was going to explode. The beam moved back. Closer. Closer. I had to do something. Anything. I snatched a rock and hurled it as far as I could in the opposite direction. It clattered loudly against a tree trunk. Instantly, the hunter turned and fired. A blast of red energy turned the tree into a cloud of smoking ash. "Move!" I hissed, and we bolted. We burst out of the tree line into a clearing littered with the ghosts of an old mining operation. Rusted machinery, broken fuel tanks, and there, half buried under a landslide, the entrance to a mining tunnel. My eyes widened. I knew this place. The old tunnels were a death trap, unstable, dark, and long forgotten. But they were also our only chance. "We go in," I said, my voice firm. Lyora hesitated. "Is it safe?" "No," I admitted, kicking aside the flimsy metal sheet covering the entrance. "But it's safer than out here." A cloud of dust billowed out, carrying the scent of old, cold earth. I helped Lyora inside, then squeezed through with Kyle. The darkness swallowed us whole. The only light was the faint, pulsing blue glow from Lyora's skin as we pushed deeper into the earth. The sounds from the forest faded away until all that was left was the sound of our own ragged breathing. When we were deep enough, I gently set Kale down. The little alien looked around with wide, luminous eyes, scared but strangely silent. Lyora slumped against the tunnel wall, shaking. I knelt beside her. "Okay, no more secrets. Tell me everything. Who are you? And why is the Varkon Empire hunting your kid?" She closed her eyes, gathering what little strength she had left. "My name is Lyora," she said softly. My son is Kale. We are Elore, a peaceful people hidden from the galaxy's conflicts. She paused, her breath catching. Kale. He's different. He carries something ancient inside him. What? I asked. Leora's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly in the dark. The gift of the starseer. The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it made my blood run cold. Why is that so dangerous? A starseer can connect minds, she explained, her voice trembling. They can sense pathways through space and time. They can activate ancient technologies left by forgotten gods. Her voice broke. The Varkon Empire wants to turn my son into a weapon. I looked at Kyle, this tiny, silent child, and tried to imagine that kind of power. We were running because her ship was attacked, a desperate jump through hyperspace gone wrong. They'd been tracked, shot down, and crashed right into my backyard. Me, a simple mechanic, now stuck between an unstoppable empire and a child who could change the fate of the galaxy. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, echoing from the tunnel entrance. Heavy, metal. They were inside. We need to move. Now, I whispered. Leora tried to stand, but her legs gave out. I caught her just before she hit the dusty floor. I've got you. I hoisted her over my shoulder, grabbing Kale with my other arm. My muscles screamed in protest, but I ignored them. We plunged deeper into the darkness. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern filled with old crates and fuel drums. And behind us, the hunter's voices echoed. The mother is weak, one of them boomed. The human carries them both. Corner them. Do not kill the child. A cold dread washed over me. They will not stop, Leora whispered, her voice faint. You must save Kyle. I shook my head, gritting my teeth. I'm saving both of you. Suddenly, Kyle reached out and touched my cheek. A gentle pulse of light, of warmth, flowed from his hand into me. It felt like pure courage being poured directly into my heart. And then he spoke, his first word, a tiny trembling whisper. Run. And I did. I pushed off, sprinting across the cavern just as a red energy blast slammed into the wall where we'd been standing, showering us with sparks. The hunters had found us. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. See you in the next one. The cavern shook violently as another searing red energy blast scorched the stone wall just inches behind Ethan. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the sound of cracking rock echoed through the dark. Kyle, so small and fragile, clung to Ethan's shirt, his tiny fingers trembling, a silent testament to the terror that surrounded them. Nearby, Leora, weak and barely conscious, struggled to lift her head from the cold stone floor. They are close, she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. Too close. Ethan didn't need the warning, he already knew. The rhythmic, menacing clang of the hunter's heavy metal boots echoed through the tunnels. Slow, steady, terrifyingly confident. The Varkon Empire never hurried. They didn't need to. Their prey always ran, and the hunt was their sport. But Ethan wasn't just running to escape. He was running to survive, to protect the two souls who depended entirely on him. The cavern sloped sharply upward, merging into an old forgotten mining passage. Rusty rails, relics of a bygone era, lined the floor where carts once hauled precious ore. Ethan leaped over a broken section of track, his boots sliding precariously on the loose gravel. From the darkness behind them, a guttural voice boomed. Target in sight. Do not let them escape. Ethan didn't dare look back. He forced his legs to move faster, his lungs burning with every desperate gasp for air. At the far end of the long passage, a sliver of light pierced the oppressive gloom. Moonlight, filtering through a broken ventilation shaft. Hope surged through him. Beyond that light, he knew, was the old shuttle yard. A graveyard of abandoned ships, a place of scrap metal and rusted dreams. But maybe, just maybe, one of those forgotten vessels still had a spark of life left in it. He sprinted toward the light, his focus absolute. Hold on tight, he whispered to Kale, his voice strained. Kale just nodded, his face buried in Ethan's jacket, the strange, glowing markings on his skin flickering with fear. Leora coughed, a weak, rattling sound. You cannot fight the Empire alone, she managed, her words laced with despair. Ethan gritted his teeth, the determination hardening his features. I'm not trying to fight them, he shot back, his voice low and intense. I'm trying to get you off this rock. He slid under the bent metal frame of the ventilation shaft, the cold night air hitting him like an icy wave. The moon cast an ethereal glow over the open clearing, illuminating the skeletons of old ships. Broken hulls, shattered cockpit glass, and twisted landing gear littered the landscape. But then, his eyes locked onto it. One ship stood out from the others, a small, unassuming cargo shuttle, covered in years of dust but remarkably intact. Its hull was dented in several places, but the engine ports didn't look completely destroyed. A flicker of recognition sparked in Ethan's memory. It was the Rustwing, a ship the miners had used years ago before the mines were abandoned. He'd worked on that ship once. He'd repaired its finicky engine. He could fly it. He had to. With a new surge of adrenaline, Ethan ran toward it, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The hunters emerged from the tunnel behind him, their helmet-mounted red lights sweeping methodically across the yard. Do not let them reach a ship, one of them growled, the command echoing across the clearing. Ethan reached the Rustwing and slammed his palm on the emergency hatch release. For one agonizing second, nothing happened. A dead red light stared back at him, mocking his desperation. Then a soft beep, and with a long, reluctant hiss, the hatch slid open. Thank you, Ethan muttered to the old ship, a prayer of gratitude. He quickly lifted Cale inside, then turned to help Leora. She practically fell into a nearby seat, her body limp and barely conscious. Ethan leaped into the pilot's chair. It was dusty, cold, and the controls were stiff from years of disuse. He flicked a series of switches, praying for a response. The ship's internal systems hummed to life, and the console lights flickered weakly. The old engine coughed, sputtered, sounding like a tired ancient animal waking from a long slumber. Come on, work for me. A red energy blast hit the ground just outside, shaking the ship with concussive force. Dirt and rocks rained against the viewport. The hunters were closing in, taking aim. Ethan slammed his hand down on the main ignition panel. The engine screamed in protest, sputtered once more, and then roared to life with a deafening, beautiful sound. Yes, Ethan shouted, a triumphant cry against the chaos. The hunters outside raised their rifles, preparing to fire. Ethan jammed the throttle forward. The Rustwing lifted off the ground, agonizingly slowly at first, its landing gear groaning, then gaining momentum. Energy blasts streaked past the windows, one coming dangerously close to the starboard engine. Ethan jerked the controls and the ship wobbled unsteadily into the air. In the back, Cal screamed, grabbing the seat for dear life. They will shoot us down before we reach orbit, she warned. Not if they can't predict where we're flying, Ethan countered. He pulled the Rustwing sharply to the left, the ship responding sluggishly. He barely missed another blast, the ship spinning clumsily and scraping its side against a broken communications tower. Sorry, Ethan yelled at the ship as if apologizing to an old friend. He pulled up hard. The Rustwing surged out of the shuttle yard and began its ascent toward the sky, but their ordeal was far from over. Below them, the hunter's own landing craft rose from the shadows, a sleek, black, menacing shape, built for speed and destruction. It was faster than anything Ethan had ever flown against. Alarms blared across the Rustwing's dashboard, a symphony of imminent danger. Ethan tightened his grip on the flight stick. Okay, so they're faster, and I'm flying a piece of junk, no problem. Oh. Cale pointed a trembling finger at the pursuing ship, his eyes wide with undiluted fear. They will catch us, he cried. Not if I do something really stupid, Ethan said, a reckless grin flashing across his face. He jerked the controls again, this time pushing them forward. The Rustwing dropped suddenly, plummeting back toward the ground as if it were falling out of the sky. The hunter ship, caught by surprise, overshot them by mere meters. Ethan immediately pulled up hard, and they shot past the hunter craft's vulnerable underside. Through his comms, he could hear the hunter pilot roaring something furious in their guttural alien language. Ethan smirked weakly. Yeah, I made you mad. Good. He aimed the rust wing straight for the cover of the clouds. But Leora's voice, though weak, cut through the tension. They will track us through the clouds. You must enter high orbit, then jump into hyperspace. Ethan's eyes darted to the hyperspace panel. It was ancient, dusty. The activation light was flickering unsteadily. If it failed mid-jump, they'd be atomized. But if he didn't use it, the hunters would catch them and tear them apart. There was no other way. No choice, Ethan whispered to himself. He pushed the rust wing upward, higher and higher. The blue sky darkened into the blackness of space. Stars appeared, cold and distant. The old ship rattled violently, its frame groaning under the immense strain, the engines screaming in protest. Cale covered his ears, crying softly. And then, the hunter ship appeared beside them, its weapon ports glowing. A massive ball of red energy began to gather at its front cannon, a miniature sun of pure destruction. Ethan yelled over the noise, "Hold on!" He grabbed the rusty hyperspace lever and pulled it down with all his might. For a moment, the universe distorted. The stars stretched into long, impossible white lines. The entire ship shook as if it were being torn apart by unseen forces. The hunter ship fired, but the rust wing was gone. The sound of a humming spaceship, tense but steady. A soft, melancholic synth melody plays underneath. Hyperspace was a silent, endless tunnel of blue and white light, streaking past the windows of the rust wing. I'd seen it before, but never like this. Never while running for my life with a dying alien mother and her terrified child in the back. The ship, my old reliable rust wing, was humming and shaking, trying its best to hold together. I glanced at the console. Fuel low, jump drive overheated, oxygen filters failing, engine temperature climbing. We were flying, but we were both tired. Me and the ship. I leaned back in the pilot's chair, letting out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Okay, we're alive. That's good. That's something. Behind me, the little alien boy, Cale, sat beside his mother, Leora. His small, glowing markings flickered weakly as he held her hand, his eyes fixed on her still face. She lay there, her breaths short and painful. I got up and knelt beside them. "How bad is it?" Leora tried to speak but only managed a pained cough. "Mama, Mama." His hands, which usually glowed so brightly, pressed against her wound, but the light was fading. I gently put a hand on his shoulder. "Kyle, I'm sorry. She's losing too much blood." He looked up at me, his large eyes welling with tears. "You can fix machines," he pleaded. "Fix her." A knot twisted in my gut. "I wish I could, kid, but she needs medical care I just don't have." I looked back at Leora. "Is there a planet nearby? Anywhere safe we can go?" She shook her head slowly, her voice a strained whisper. "No planet, no colony. Only our homeworld." "And where is that?" I asked, trying to keep my own voice steady. She lifted a trembling hand, pointing towards the holographic star map. As her finger glowed, the map shifted, locking onto a new set of coordinates deep in uncharted space. "That world is hidden," she whispered. "The Empire does not know how to find it, but Cale can guide you." I stared at the coordinates. They were in the middle of nowhere, a place no human ship was ever meant to travel alone. But then, I wasn't alone anymore. I gave her a firm nod. "I'll take him there." A faint smile touched Leora's lips, but fear still haunted her eyes. "Ethan, there is something you must know. About Cale. About why they hunt him." I sat down, ready to listen. "Tell me." She closed her eyes, gathering what little strength she had left. "My son is not just a child. He carries a gift, the gift of the starseer." I frowned. "You mentioned that before. What does it mean?" Kyle looked down, as if ashamed. Leora continued, her voice soft but clear. "Long ago, our ancestors created machines older than any empire. Machines that listen to thoughts. Machines that open doors to places no ships can reach. Machines that can move stars. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Move stars? That's impossible. For most, she said softly. But the starseer can. He sees paths others cannot. His mind can speak to ancient systems. He can open gates and destroy armies or save entire worlds. I looked at Kale again. This small, quiet, scared little boy didn't look like someone who could move stars. And the Varkon Empire, I said, the pieces clicking into place. They want to use him for that? Yes, Leora whispered. They believe the starseer can make them rulers of the galaxy. Of course they do. It's always about power. Suddenly she grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly tight. Her eyes glowed with an urgent fire. Listen to me, Ethan Cole. Humans, your kind, you are seen as simple by other species, weak, primitive. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. But you are not weak, she insisted. Tonight you saved us. You fought hunters without fear. You ran into fire to protect my son. No Eloran warrior would risk so much for strangers. She touched my arm, her gaze softening. Kale needs a guardian who believes in good. Someone who will protect him not for power, but for the right reason. I swallowed hard. I'm not a hero. You are to him, she said. And as I looked over, Kyle met my gaze and nodded slowly. In his glowing eyes, I saw something new. Trust. Before I could respond, the rust wing jerked violently. Red warning lights flashed across the console. The engine let out a deafening metallic scream, then settled into a worrying, rattling hum. I leaped back to the controls. What now? I checked the sensors, and my blood ran cold. A ship had just dropped out of hyperspace behind us. A big one, a Varkon warship. No, they can't be here, I muttered, my hands flying across the console. We jumped. How did they? Leora's voice was barely a whisper. They track my blood. They will follow until I am gone. Kyle clutched his mother's arm, his voice breaking. No, you can't leave. Leora smiled sadly, brushing his cheek. Kyle, my light, you must live. You must reach home. The galaxy needs you. A bright red energy blast shot past our cockpit, shaking the rustwing to its core. A warning shot. I gripped the controls, sweat beading on my forehead. If they shoot again, we're done. I can't outrun them. But then something incredible happened. Kale stood up, his eyes suddenly glowing brighter than I'd ever seen them. He placed his small, luminous hand on the rustwing's main console. The ship responded instantly. The dim lights grew stronger, and the engine's rattle smoothed into a powerful, waking hum. What are you doing? I asked, amazed. Helping, Kyle whispered. A wave of soft blue light flowed from his hand, surging through the ship's systems. For a moment, the rustwing felt alive. This kid didn't just connect with ancient alien tech. He could talk to my old battered human-made ship, too. The rustwing lunged forward, and the streaks of hyperspace blurred into a solid white tunnel. The Varkon warship behind us shrank into a pinpoint of light and vanished. The surge of energy left Kale exhausted, and he collapsed into my arms. I held him carefully. You saved us, kid. He buried his face in my shoulder and whispered, I am scared. I hugged him tight. Me too. But we're going to get you home. I promise. I looked back at Leora. She was still silent. Her glowing lines had faded completely. I closed my eyes, accepting the truth. She was gone. Now it was just me and the child. A small boy with the power to change the entire galaxy. And hunters who would never, ever stop coming for him. The journey had just begun. Thank you so much for tuning into this story. If you enjoyed this journey into the cosmos, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more adventures. Let me know in the comments what you think will happen next. Stay safe out there, and see you next time. Ethan gently placed a blanket over Leora's still form. The soft, internal glow that had always defined her was gone. She looked peaceful, as if finally free from the fear and pain that had been her constant companions for so long. Kale sat beside her, a silent, unmoving statue. No tears, just stillness, his small hand holding hers. Ethan didn't know what to say. What words could possibly comfort a child who had just lost his mother in the cold, unforgiving vacuum of space? He knelt beside Kale, the words catching in his throat. I'm sorry. Kale's small, luminous eyes lifted to meet his. She said, "You will protect me." The weight of that trust hit Ethan like a physical blow. He swallowed hard. "I will. I promise." Kale gave a single, slow nod. It was a small gesture, but it held a universe of faith. Before Ethan could find more words, the Rustwing's alarms blared to life, shattering the somber quiet. Red lights flashed across the cockpit. A chilling synthesized voice announced, "Warning, warp signature detected. Multiple ships approaching." Ethan scrambled to the pilot's seat, his heart pounding against his ribs as he checked the scanners. His stomach plummeted. 3 Varkon hunters. They'd found him. Again. "No, no, no," he whispered, his hands flying across the controls. "We just escaped." The warships closed in with terrifying speed, black, angular predators glowing with deadly red energy. Ethan pushed the Rustwing's engines, but the old freighter rattled violently in protest. The engine was already redlining. It had nothing left to give. Kyle stood behind the pilot's chair, his small hands clutching the worn fabric. "They are angry." Ethan forced a grim smile. "Yeah, I noticed." A barrage of red energy beams erupted from the Varkon ships. Ethan wrenched the controls, yanking the Rustwing into a hard, evasive turn. He dodged most of them, but one blast clipped the ship's port wing. The entire vessel spun, alarms howling in a chaotic symphony. Kale was thrown from his feet, sliding across the metal floor. Ethan, with one hand on the controls, snatched him with the other, pulling him back. "Hang on!" Ethan yelled, pulling the ship into a steep climb. They shot past a cluster of glowing asteroids, floating like giant shards of shattered silver glass. The hunters were right on their tail. Another blast grazed the Rustwing's hull. Sparks rained down from the ceiling, and the engine screamed in agony. "We can't take another hit," Ethan muttered, his mind racing. "I need cover. Something. Anything." His eyes locked onto the asteroid field ahead. It was a death trap, sharp, unpredictable, and moving at lethal velocities. But it was also their only chance. A terrible, brilliant idea sparked in his mind. He gripped the controls with both hands. "Kale, hold on to something." Kale quickly grabbed a support bar, bracing himself as Ethan plunged the Rustwing head first into the spinning chaos of the asteroid field. The ship dodged left, then right, twisting and weaving through the deadly ballet of spinning rock. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. The hull scraped against a giant stone, sending a shower of sparks trailing behind them like a desperate firework. The hunters followed, but their larger, less nimble ship struggled. One of them misjudged a turn, slamming directly into a massive asteroid. It vanished in a silent, fiery explosion, scattering debris across the blackness. A smirk touched Ethan's lips, a brief flicker of victory in the midst of terror. "One down." Another hunter fired, its beam slicing a smaller asteroid in two. The resulting fragments became deadly projectiles, hurtling straight for the Rustwing. Ethan ducked instinctively, a useless reflex in the cockpit. A huge chunk of rock came flying straight at their viewport. "No, no, no!" Ethan shouted. Suddenly, Kale raised his hands. The intricate glowing lines on his skin flared with brilliant light. Out in the void, the massive asteroid slowed, then stopped. For a single, breathless moment, it hovered just inches from the cockpit glass, held in place by an invisible, impossible force. Kyle trembled with the effort. "Go," he whispered, his voice strained. Ethan didn't hesitate. He slammed the throttle forward. The Rustwing shot past the suspended rock just as Kale collapsed to his knees, his power spent. The asteroid, released from his control, launched backward like a projectile from a cosmic slingshot, slamming into the pursuing hunter and obliterating it instantly. Ethan rushed to Kale's side. "Hey, you okay?" Kale nodded weakly. "I used too much power." "You saved us," Ethan said, his own voice shaking. "But don't push yourself. I need you alive." Kale tried to smile, but the effort was too much. Just then, the last Varkon hunter emerged from behind a behemoth asteroid. This one was larger, more heavily armed, its red engines burning with a malevolent intensity. It fired. A colossal beam of energy slammed into the Rustwing. The cockpit exploded in a shower of sparks and shrapnel. The ship spun wildly, out of control. Ethan was thrown forward against the console while Cale rolled helplessly across the floor. Everything blurred. The whining scream of the engine slowed to a sputtering groan. The lights flickered, then died. Come on. Not now. Ethan groaned, pulling himself up. Through the shattered viewport, he saw a horrifying sight. The asteroid field ended just ahead. Beyond it was nothing but open, empty space. And the hunter was right behind them, its main cannon already charging for the killing blow. He cursed under his breath. He ran a desperate diagnostic. Fuel, almost empty. Jump drive, overheated. Hull integrity, critical. Weapons offline, they couldn't run, they couldn't fight. But Ethan had one last idea. The kind of insane, desperate gamble you make when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. He knelt beside Cale. Cale, I need your help again. Cale shook his head, utterly exhausted. I have no power left. Please, Ethan begged, his voice raw. Just a little. I need you to boost the engine. One more time, or we die. With a visible, trembling effort, Cale lifted his shaking hands and touched the engine panel. A faint blue light, a mere ghost of his earlier power, flowed from his skin into the ship's circuits. The engine hummed, then coughed, then roared back to life with a surge of unexpected power. Ethan leaped back to the controls. Hold tight! He aimed the Rustwing straight down toward the last cluster of giant spinning asteroids. The hunter ship fired its cannon. The red beam tore through the space where the Rustwing had been mere seconds before. Ethan pulled up sharply, the G-force crushing him into his seat. The ship's hull scraped past a massive asteroid, the shriek of metal on rock a testament to their near miss. The hunter tried to follow, but it was too slow, too heavy. Ethan wove through the tight cluster, zigzagging between rocks that moved like giant spinning blades. The Rustwing drifted through the black void like a wounded bird. Its hull was a tapestry of cracks, its engines scorched, and acrid smoke bled from every seam. With shaking hands, Ethan patched wires and tightened bolts, a desperate prayer in every motion to keep the old freighter alive just a little longer. Beside the control panel, Cale lay wrapped in a thermal blanket. He was so pale, his usually vibrant markings faded to a barely perceptible shimmer. Every few minutes his eyes would flutter open, a flicker of awareness before exhaustion pulled him back under. Ethan checked the scanners again. Nothing. No Varkon ships. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the silence wasn't threatening. It was safe. His gaze fell to the star map Leora had shown him before the end. The coordinates glowed faintly, a single point of light in a sector marked simply as unknown. Uncharted. A shot in the dark. Taking a deep breath, Ethan keyed in the coordinates. All right, kid, let's hope your home is friendly. The Rustwing groaned in protest but obeyed, slowly changing course and drifting toward the unknown star system. For hours they traveled in silence, the only sound the rhythmic hum of the life support systems. Then something strange happened. The ship began to slow, entirely on its own. The engine's hum softened, then faded into quiet. Ethan frowned, his hands hovering over the controls. He hadn't touched anything. The ship wasn't shutting down. It felt like it was being guided. A soft, ethereal blue glow began to fill the cockpit, bathing everything in its gentle light. At the same time, Cale's markings flickered, then flared back to life. He sat up slowly, his small hand pointing a trembling finger toward the main viewport. Home, he whispered, his voice raspy but full of wonder. Ethan looked outside and his breath caught in his throat. A colossal nebula bloomed before them, a swirling, living ocean of bright blue and silver starlight. And nestled within its protective embrace was a planet, shrouded in opalescent white clouds and dotted with cities that shone like jewels. It was beautiful, a sight more breathtaking than anything Ethan had ever seen or imagined. As the Rustwing glided closer, A series of enormous glowing rings materialized around the planet. They floated like celestial halos, humming with a deep, ancient power. Kale's eyes widened. The gates. They welcome us. Ethan didn't know what that meant, but he watched in awe as the rings aligned and opened, creating a pathway of pure light. The Rustwing followed it, no longer under his control, carried by some invisible, benevolent force. Ethan whispered, more to himself than to Kale. So this is where the starseer comes from. Kale nodded weakly, a small smile on his face. This is Eloros, our hidden world. As the ship descended through the clouds, an impossible vista unfolded. Soaring crystalline towers scraped the sky. Cities were built upon floating platforms connected by rivers of light, and everything pulsed with that same gentle blue glow that emanated from Kale's own skin. The Rustwing settled onto a circular landing pad with a near-silent hiss. It was surrounded by tall, slender figures dressed in flowing silver robes. Their eyes glowed softly, and their faces held a calm, ancient wisdom that made Ethan, a veteran of a dozen dirty space skirmishes, feel utterly small and out of place. He unbuckled himself, gently scooped up Kale, and carried him towards the ramp. As they emerged, a wave of soft whispers rippled through the assembled aliens. It is the starseer child. He survived. And the mother? A pause, heavy with sorrow. Gone. I feel her light no more. Ethan felt Kale's small hand tighten its grip on his flight suit. One of the figures, clearly an elder, stepped forward, his robes shimmering like liquid moonlight. You... human. You brought him home. Ethan just nodded. His mother asked me to. She gave her life to save him. The elder bowed his head in a gesture of profound respect. Her sacrifice will be remembered for 1,000 years. Several of the other Alorans stepped forward and knelt before Kale, their glowing fingertips touching the ground in reverence. One of them whispered, "Welcome home, Kale Aloran, last of the starseer bloodline." Kale looked up at them, his eyes wide with fear. I don't want to be the last. Instinctively, Ethan knelt beside him, putting a reassuring arm around the boy's shoulders. You're not alone. I'm here. The elders looked at Ethan, their expressions a mix of confusion and awe. You risked your life for a child who was not your own, one observed. No warrior of our people would dare face the Varkon Empire alone, another added, his voice filled with disbelief. Why? Why would a human do this? Ethan shrugged, feeling awkward under their intense scrutiny. Because it was the right thing to do. The elders exchanged glances. That simple, unadorned sentence seemed to surprise them more than any display of power Kyle might have possessed. The first elder stepped closer. Human, Ethan Cole. The galaxy sees your species as brash, short-sighted, and weak. But you carried the last starseer through fire, war, and death. For what purpose? What do humans gain from such an act? Ethan looked down at Kyle, at the small boy who had lost everything, and then met the elder's gaze. I didn't save him for a reward. I saved him because he was a kid and he needed help. That's all. The elder reached out and gently touched Ethan's forehead with 2 glowing fingers. A wave of unexpected warmth spread through Ethan's mind, not invasive, but comforting. He saw flashes of visions, Kale laughing with his mother in a glowing forest, Kale crying in the burning wreckage of their ship, Kale sleeping peacefully in the Rustwing's cockpit. Then the warmth faded. The elder stepped back, his eyes wide with a new understanding. A human heart, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. So simple, yet so powerful. Before Ethan could even begin to process what had just happened, a deafening alarm blared across the pristine city. The serene blue sky instantly darkened, the clouds churning and turning a bloody, malevolent red. Ethan spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm that wasn't there. What is that? The elder's face hardened, his ancient calm replaced by dawning horror. It cannot be. A colossal shadow emerged from above the clouds, a jagged silhouette that blotted out the light. It was a ship, a massive, brutal Varkon dreadnought. It pierced the sky like a dagger, its hull glowing with visceral red fire. Ethan's stomach plummeted. How? How did they find this place? It's supposed to be hidden. The elder's voice was a terrified whisper. They followed the mother's blood, a beacon they could not resist, and now they have come for the child. Cale grabbed Ethan's hand, his small body trembling. Don't let them take me. Ethan squeezed his hand tightly, his own fear forged into a cold, hard resolve. They'll have to go through me first. The elder looked at Ethan, a new respect and a new fear in his glowing eyes. We must prepare, he declared, his voice ringing with grim authority. War is coming to Aloros. Ethan nodded grimly, his eyes fixed on the monstrous ship descending upon this peaceful world. The hunt wasn't over. It had just followed them home, and now an entire world was in danger because of the promise he'd made to a dying mother. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures. We'll see you in the next one. The sky above the peaceful world of Aloros fractured, turning a violent shade of red. A colossal shape tore through the clouds, a Varkon dreadnought, its engines roaring like a mechanical god of thunder, shaking the very foundations of the floating cities below. Thousands of Aloran, a people who had never known war, looked up in shared terror. This was a sound they had only read about in ancient texts, the sound of an enemy. On a high landing platform, a man named Ethan stood, his hand clutching the small, trembling hand of a child, Cale. The boy's skin, marked with glowing patterns, flickered with an anxious light. The city's elders, clad in silver robes, gathered around them, their garments whispering in the wind. The first elder's voice shook as he spoke. The Varkon Empire. They've found us. They've come for the child, for the starseer. Cale pressed closer to Ethan. What do we do? Ethan had no plan, no army, no weapons. He was just a human, a visitor to this serene world. But he possessed something the Varkon Empire could never comprehend, a stubborn human heart that refused to surrender hope. He looked down at the child, then at the terrified elders. We fight, Ethan declared, his voice firm. We protect your home. An elder looked at him bewildered. But human, our people do not know how to fight. Ethan's jaw set. Then today, he said, is the day you learn. Thunder cracked again, not from the dreadnought's engines, but from the dozens of black metal pods it launched. They screamed through the air like meteors, crashing into the crystalline streets of the city. Armored Varkon soldiers marched out, their weapons glowing with a malevolent red light, all advancing toward the central tower, where Kyle, the starseer child, stood frozen in fear. Ethan knelt, placing his hands on Kyle's shoulders, forcing the boy to look at him. Listen to me. You are stronger than you realize. Your mother gave her life to protect you. I will not let her sacrifice be for nothing. Tears welled in Cale's glowing eyes, but then a spark of defiance ignited within them. I will not let them take my world. Ethan managed a grim smile. That's the spirit. He turned to the elders. Gather everyone, use whatever your city has, shields, lights, construction machines, anything. The elders, seeing the fire in the human's eyes, bowed and rushed to obey. Within minutes, the ancient city awakened. Crystal towers blazed with defensive blue energy. Bridges shifted, locking into place like armored gates. Giant machines, silent for centuries, rose from beneath the streets, guardians of a forgotten age. The Aloran were a peaceful race, but their ancestors had been anything but naive. Ethan stood at the edge of the platform as the first wave of Varkon soldiers charged. He muttered to himself, All right, Ethan. Time to do something stupid again. He snatched a fallen energy spear from the ground. It hummed with power. He took a deep breath, and he charged. He wasn't a soldier, just a mechanic, but he slammed into the first Varkon with raw human force, sending him sprawling. He spun the spear, blocking a plasma blast that sent a shockwave up his arms. Behind him, the Aloran defense machines fired, their blue beams cutting through the Varkon ranks. But for every soldier that fell, 2 more took their place. They were an endless tide. Ethan fought with everything he had, blocking, dodging, shouting, refusing to fall. A heavy blow sent him to his knees. The wind knocked out of him. A Varkon soldier raised his blade for the final strike. Suddenly a scream tore through the air. No! A massive wave of blue energy erupted from Kyle, blasting the attacker backward. Ethan staggered to his feet. Kale, get behind me! But the child shook his head, stepping forward, his skin now glowing with incredible intensity. I can help. I have to. As Kale's light pulsed, the city's machines responded, their lights pulsing in perfect rhythm with his heartbeat. That's when Ethan realized it. Kale wasn't just a starseer. He was the most powerful one in generations. But it was too late. High above, the Varkon dreadnought was charging its main cannon. A swirling red vortex of energy formed at its core, aimed directly at the heart of the city. The elders gasped in despair. That weapon, it will obliterate us all. Kale looked at Ethan, his eyes filled with a wisdom far beyond his years. I can stop it. Ethan grabbed his arm. No, it's too much for you. It could kill you. Kale gently pulled away. Mama said, my light is for the galaxy. He stepped to the very edge of the platform and raised his small hands to the sky. His markings ignited, shining with the brilliance of a newborn star. Pure blue energy poured from him, forming a massive shimmering shield over the entire city. The Varkon cannon fired. A colossal beam of red destruction slammed into Kale's barrier. The sky exploded. Kale screamed, but he did not fall. The shield held. The red beam buckled, shattered, and then faded. The dreadnought itself shuddered, its systems overloaded. Fires erupted along its hull, and then the massive warship broke apart, consumed in a silent final explosion. The battle was over. The Varkon soldiers below dropped their weapons and fled. Eloros was saved. Kale collapsed, and Ethan caught him just before he hit the ground. The elders gathered, their eyes wide with awe. One whispered, the prophecy was true. The human and the guardian who would bring the starseer home. Ethan looked up, confused. Guardian? Me? I'm just a guy who fixes machines. The first elder placed a hand on his shoulder. No, you are more. You stood against an empire with nothing but your heart. He stepped back and bowed. Then all the elders bowed. Then, from every corner of the city, a single whisper rose, carried on the wind, a chorus of thousands of voices. The human guardian, protector of the starseer. Some called him something more. The human who became a god. Ethan just held the sleeping child, shaking his head. I'm no god, but a legend had just been born. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from across the galaxy. We'll see you in the next one.